In this demo, I will demonstrate the process of defining a new vendor in the system. From the Purchasing module, we enter the vendor's form. We define the vendor name, and a number of columns are filled in automatically. The system automatically allocates a vendor number according to the template defined in the Cust and Vend numeration templates form. The default status assigned to new vendors appears in the status column, and the user defining the new vendor appears in the Assigned To column. All of these values can be revised manually. We can also add additional statuses by clicking BPM Flowchart Vendors on the direct activation bar. By right-clicking a status in the chart, you can view its various attributes, change them, add new statuses. You can also leave the default statuses and attributes that were predefined in the system. For instance, you can use the status column to define the vendor as inactive. Such a vendor does not appear in the choose lists of purchasing documents. Let's return to the vendor's form. In the Address and Phone tab, we can fill in the relevant information in the address, telephone, and fax columns, and so forth. In the Details tab, we can link the vendor to a branch and fill in a variety of important data. For example, we can flag the Change Name column in order to allow us to change the vendor's name in various documents, particularly useful in the case of a one-time vendor. Now let's enter the Key Personnel for Vendor sublevel form. For convenience, let's press F4. Here we can record all of the vendor's key contacts with their phone numbers and email addresses. In the Type of Contact tab, we can define a contact as a default for a given transaction with the vendor. For example, if we flag the vendor quote contact column for a given contact, that person's information appears automatically in any price quote opened for this vendor. We can press F1 to display help for whatever column we are in. Let's return to the upper level form by pressing the Escape key or clicking the path bar and enter the Financial Parameters for Vendors form. To automatically retrieve this vendor's data, we put the cursor in the vendor number column and open the form from the direct activation bar. The vendor's banking information can be recorded in the Bank Account Details sublevel form. These details are filled in automatically when we first record a bank transfer for this vendor, though we can revise them for any particular transaction. If checks for this vendor are sent to a different address than that defined for the vendor, we can record the details in the Remit to Address Check sublevel form. In the General tab, we can fill in the vendor's company registration number and federal tax ID. We can also define the default Form 1099 category to which payments to this vendor will be assigned, though it may be revised in a specific vendor document. The Include in 1099 column is flagged automatically. We can also assign the vendor to a previously defined vendor category in the Classification column. The vendor's account number appears automatically. In the Payment Terms column, we can define the default payment terms for purchases from this vendor, which can be revised manually for any particular invoice. Let's move to the Invoice Data tab. The Pay by Bank Transfer column determines whether the Prepare Payments program automatically opens checks or bank transfers for payments to this vendor. If you want to record a specific purchases account in the ledger when receiving invoices from this vendor, you can define such an account. These definitions can all be revised manually whenever necessary. For more information, run the Vendor Wizards.